To rejoinders, right? And I think that emotionality and emotionalism have taken precedence over something called truth and standards for adjudicating among truth claims in this country. And it's a form of moral cowardice that has taken ascendancy in our culture.
I agree with that for certain. You are not a moral coward. That's obvious. Professor, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Well, we've described woke fascism. We want to bring you now a premier example of it. It's our next guest, Titiana McGrath, a self-described radical intersectionalist poet committed to feminism, social justice, and armed peaceful protest. Tatiana's preferred pronouns are Z, Zim, and Zer. For the past year, Z has been tweeting heavily to 240,000 followers. Here's a sampling of those tweets. Quote, "The only bad thing about ebooks is that you can't burn them if they're offensive. If a sufficient number of feminists were to join ISIS, we could turn it into a progressive social justice movement. The police have asked me to stop contacting them whenever someone disagrees with one of my tweets, and they say we're not living in a fascist state." And now Titiana has a new book. It's called Woke, A Guide to Social Justice. Here's an excerpt from the book. "I would go so far as to say that all knowledge is a patriarchal construct because it has been acquired over centuries of male totalitarianism. Every time a man speaks, therefore, he's contributing to a culture of androcentric hegemony. In order to remedy this problem, we need to ensure that men today are speaking more than men. This is why I never stop talking, even when I have nothing of value to say." You should read it. Actually, you really should, because fortunately, the author is not real. She is the work of English writer and comedian Andrew Doyle, who's, by the way, a genius, maybe too smart for some of his critics on the left. Twitter's cultural Stasi have banned and reinstated his Twitter feed no fewer than 4 times. We're proud to have Andrew Doyle join us tonight. Andrew Doyle, thanks very much for coming on. Let me just say,
thanks, Tucker.
You write one of the best things on the entire internet, and that's, I mean that as high praise. Why do you think you are so disliked by the people you are mocking? Are you surprised that they see your mockery for what it is?
No, not at all. I mean, if I was the person being mocked, I wouldn't find it very funny either. But part of the whole point of the Titania character is that she's this very kind of po-faced, very sort of privileged woman who still thinks she's oppressed because she's a modern-day feminist who believes in this sort of nebulous thing that we call the patriarchy. But she never laughs, and she never has a sense of humour about herself. And I think that's one of the reasons I wanted to poke fun at this whole woke movement, because ultimately it's totally humourless. It can't have a joke. It can't handle a joke, because it's constantly looking to be offended by absolutely anything, even when there's nothing to be offended about. So of course the woke people aren't going to like this book. And in fact, the fact that they don't suggests that I'm doing something right.
I think that's right. So someone sent me one of your tweets, I mean, some time ago, and it wasn't clear to me whether it was real or not. You must get that a lot. I mean, do you have people who believe that this is sincere?
Oh, absolutely. I get it all the time. But I mean, in the book, I constantly quote genuine modern social justice activists alongside with what I'm saying as Titania. And the point is that you can see that they're not a million miles away from each other. That's what's quite scary about this. I mean, like when Titania tweets and says the only way we can stop the rise of fascism is if the government are allowed to arrest people for what they say and think. I mean, that's obviously a self-contradictory joke. But actually, it's not a million miles away from this kind of censorial, basically authoritarian aspect that comes with the social justice movement as it currently stands. I mean, I think social justice should be something that's wonderful. It should be something that we're looking out for. Of course. We're standing up against racism, homophobia, the rest of it. But it's not that, is it? The way it currently plays out, it's nothing like that. It's actually quite sinister.
I'm just struck that you're one of the only talented comedians who's been brave enough to make fun of this. Why is that?
Well, I mean, you'll have noticed, won't you, over the past few years that comedians are constantly told to apologise for any joke that causes any offence at all. And the problem with that is there's literally not a single joke I could make that wouldn't upset someone in my audience, right? I've had situations where people have been upset. I mean, I could tell a knock-knock joke and someone could be upset because maybe their wife was crushed by a heavy door or something like that. You can't do anything to stop people being upset or offended. And comedians, I just wish comedians would stop apologising. That's something, I mean, it happened in America, didn't it, with Kevin Hart? He made some jokes a few years ago on Twitter, and then all of a sudden someone's trawled through Twitter to dig this stuff up and try and discredit him and say, you can't host the Oscars anymore. And then he has to apologise all over again, even though he apologised before. I just wish comedians just stop apologising for causing offence. It's called the real world. You're going to get offended sometimes, and that's sort of fine, isn't it?
They're supposed to be the bravest people in our society. That's the whole point of being a comedian, is bravery. And you're one of like 2 people who lives up to that. And so congratulations. I hope this book does really well. It deserves it.
Thank you so much. Thanks.
Thank you.
I mean, I think certainly a lot of people are nervous about saying things that offend people because they know that these people can ruin their careers. Because that's what they do. They go through everything you've ever said. I mean, let's face it. You could go through anyone's emails and tweets and everything. You can find something that can be taken out of context and make anyone look like a monster.
Oh, I've heard.
You know, I'm sure. I read
except
about for yourself,
that. Yes,
of course.
So that can happen.
No, you're pure as the driven snow. But it can happen to absolutely anyone, and there's real power in that. You know, people keep saying that the people who misinterpret what I'm doing will say that I'm punching down. You know, I'm making fun of minority groups, right?
No,
but I'm not. I'm punching up at this very powerful woke elite. These people have so much clout.
You're absolutely. You've just summed. I wish we had more time. You just summed up my worldview in a single sentence. You are punching. You are punching up against the powerful, and that's why they hate you. And God bless you for what you're doing. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Cheers.
Andrew Doyle. Well, the woke left destroys all that it touches, even touching itself. That may be the